one of the things you said reminded me of a study that was published in Science in the early 80s, which compared the post-operative recovery rates of people who looked out of a window where they saw green trees with others who looked out on a concrete wall. And there was a difference in the way that you would predict from your...
Absolutely right. I think it was work of Robert Ulrich or Kaplan.
Right.
Ulrich, yeah.
So, please, comments. One and then another one there.
I live in the country by the sea.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realise how lucky I was. And I'm sure if you compare the age of death where I live with that in London, is it dramatically different?
Well, there are regional differences, and we actually haven't looked at death, but what we have looked at is illness and infirmity. And we are finding, in fact we're going to publish a study shortly, showing that if you live in it's very difficult to get this data accurately, but if you live in a county that's got a lot of water in it, then your health record is likely to be much better than if you live in a county with very little water, as a generalisation. So yes.
Living in the country by the sea, I've chosen
You're exactly right. Well, I live in the country by the sea as well, in southwest Britain, and certainly...
We both live forever.
Well, possibly.
The talk is equally intuitively appealing, and I think everybody's nodding along saying, yeah, right. And yet, then you have to give another explanation for this human tendency to flock towards urban environments. And one of the reasons for that being, perhaps, is that all the pictures that you show on your website is of nature at its finest. The sun is shining, the people are smiling. If you show pictures of a sort of a very rainy sort of day, I'd rather be in the building than out in the park. And coming in about nature, about water. Water is agreeable in a nice canal, but when it's polluted and it becomes a sink, then it isn't. And many cities drain their water bodies because they were marshes, and mosquitoes were breeding. So water per se is not the factor, it's water how it's managed. And then we move away from this idea of nature being benign, but nature as man's made it. Like the most beautiful bits of nature are the parks, I always find. Because that's, so it is not nature per se that I would argue that we live in an ideal relationship with, but nature as we control it.
Well, I agree with some of your points. I think that there might be actually real fundamental deep connections with water for all kinds of reasons we don't fully understand. And I think I could find plenty of people who are afraid of water, and some like it a lot, so that is also true. But on the whole, on global scales, it seems that people do flock to be by water, and there is that evidence. It's very clear. People do seem to be attracted to live by water and use water and want to have water. Your point about the negative aspects, though, are absolutely right. And what we're trying to do, although I've portrayed it perhaps in a very positive way today, I think there's good evidence that we can use water in aquatic environments positively to motivate people to be active, to tackle obesity and depression. So we're doing that, and that is actually happening, and it works. But you're absolutely right. It's a very sensible comment you made. Biophilia is an interesting hypothesis. I've written a paper which I haven't published called Biophobia, which makes your point. Exactly. Why have people left nature to go and live in cities? Because they're wealthier, they live longer. Because if you look at life expectancy compared with what it was when we didn't live in cities, it was far less. And you can actually make the case for biophobia. People have moved away from nature. Obviously, the balance is somewhere in between. And I think that's the kind of research that we need to understand. What is that balance? What is the blend that people need to feel, particularly in modern day societies, of having some time in an urban environment where it's stimulating, it's safe, there are all sorts of advantages you can get from it. But there are many people, and I think in London, who want to escape the city because they do need a bit of reinvigorating from being in nature again and remembering what nature's like. So finding that balance and understanding why we need that balance and what it is, I think is actually the goal. Yeah.
Your case works particularly well in a country that's an island, and you mentioned a guy in Princeton or somewhere like that, I think it was.
Harvard, yeah.
How would you place your argument for a human being who lives in Central Asia somewhere, or
Yeah.
in the middle of Africa, how does water play out to somebody who
Mm-hmm.
has no prospect of going to the sea?
We're great question, and of course we need to do work in that area, which is why at the beginning of October I'm going to Uzbekistan and to Kazakhstan to begin that journey and find out. Which is why I've been at pains to say that this, you're getting a momentum with this argument, but it may not be true. And what we're interested in is just finding out how it works, what it is.
Taking it a little bit further and going away from water, there are sea people and there are mountain people.
Yes, that's also true. Yeah.
And I happen to be in the middle of a book called, I think, Mountains of the Mind, Farlin, in which he traces what you're doing with water, with mountains, people's reaction to it,
Yeah.
when they changed from finding it hateful to finding it intensely beautiful, and why, and so on.
Yeah.
So that might be an interesting comparative sometime with the people who,
Yeah.
and the Central Asians would do better.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and we've actually talked about having a white gym, which is the mountains and hill walking kind of thing, just to get people physically active. But I think you're right, it's a very good group. There are also a lot of people, and I'm one of them, although I prefer the sea, but there are lots of people who love the desert as well.
Me too.
And I think what we're talking about there is extreme environments in a way, or at least if not extreme in the physical sense, then very strong environments, impressive environments that people are inspired by in some way or other, because desert and mountains and sea can all be like that. So.
This is just really to extend the discussions already started, because a lot of the people who propose these kinds of theories come from certain, may themselves live on sort of seaboards, but also come from a certain latitude.
Yeah.
Because if you go to an area where you've got monsoons, I've never lived there, but my guess is you have a completely different sensibility about water, because you have a completely different view of it.
Yeah.
Either monsoons don't come and you're desperate and your crops are going to fail, or they wash your crops away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would have thought all those kinds of things have to be factored in before you plump for biophilia or indeed
Biophobia. And that's what we're trying to do. We're going to try and be objective about it. I mean, this whole argument functions at many different levels, nationally, internationally, regionally, locally, whatever. Remember, I come from a medical school, and our big problem at the moment is that people don't go outside enough. They're obese and they're depressed, they smoke and they drink too much. And I haven't got time, but I could tell you stories about various initiatives that we're taking at the moment with workforces. So there's a company in the southwest Britain, I'll just do this very quickly, that makes pasties, Ginster's pasties. I don't know if you've ever eaten Ginster's pasties. That company a few years ago was going to hell because its workforce didn't turn up. They were largely obese, they smoked, they drank, they were generally depressed, and it was pretty miserable. And the company was going down the pan, and they started a program whereby the director of the company started providing free fruit and salad at lunchtime. He took all the fast food, drinks and food machines out of the company, and we arranged a whole load of outdoor pursuits before work, in the middle of the day, and after work for them. This company's transformed, the workforce is really engaged, the number of visits to GPs has gone down, the number of acute admissions with different illnesses has gone down, the company's gone back into profit, absenteeism has gone down. So now we've been asked by the government to do this with Dame Carol Black, who leads the government's workforce programmes, to try and develop these motivating people to spend time outdoors being physically active to improve the workforce. In Cornwall, the Cornwall Unitary Authority, the council for Cornwall, has got 22,000 employees. They take 9.5 duvet days a year, it's appalling, and that costs Cornwall Unitary Authority £11.5 million. So we say, give us $1 million and we'll stop them doing it.
You've got the Hawthorne effect to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we call it the Ginster effect now.
The Ginster effect, yeah.
The Ginster effect now.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to
Sure.
stop there.